Good morning. I'm recording this on my phone, so please have patience with me. I've been finding small silhouettes of Mickey Mouse outside of my house. To start off, I now reside in a completely different state. After leaving my job at the Walt Disney World Resort in Orlando, I used to be what some people describe as a suit. I'm one of the guys that walks around the park in plain sight, yet hidden to the public. I'm part of an elite group of black polo sporting undercover security officers that specialize in worse things than shoplifters and unruly park guests. If you are at Disney World and you see more than a few guys in one place wearing black polos, then you are most likely in danger, and you should leave the area immediately. The sad part is we are so good at blending in with the woodwork that you wouldn't even notice us. Anyway, let me cut to the chase here. I have seen some pretty weird things at Disney World during my time there. These anomalies that everyone speaks of, well, they are true, but the least of our concerns. You see, the thing is, when you take hundreds of thousands of people and cram them into a relatively small space, weird stuff is going to happen. We have had kids, even adults, get lost in the park. Cryptozoological sightings, alien sightings, ghost sightings, and just generally unexplainable things happening all the time. I was a senior special security officer during the height of my time there, and got called for some pretty dark stuff. Many of you think we, as in the security detail I was in, were covering up for Disney Corp, but in our true nature, we were damage control, and were kept out of the loop on things, and were trained not to question, but to diffuse. There was one thing though, that to this day still bothers me. A cast member called us on the Nextel to report that a group of 4 children had gone missing on the land. Of course I thought it was just another one of those anomalies. For those of you who don't know the eerily calming nature ride, called Living with the Land, it is located in the land of the Sea Pavilion, over by Soarin'. The odd thing about this report is that we have never received one of these complaints before. And of course we are issued cover-up stories to tell cast members and guests to calm them down. My colleague calmly came up with a story and explained that the kids were just part of an educational program, and they exited the boat with a guide, and were escorted into the botany lab that existed on the ride. I told her not to ask any questions or talk about the incident, as to not spread false rumors, and had my colleagues escort her to a nearby security office to have her sign some forms. My human nature took over, and I got curious and entered the ride on the next boat alone. Living with the Land is boring, not particularly popular, so I can understand how the kids would be on the boat alone, and also how I could get on the boat by myself. I noticed absolutely nothing, until I came to the part of the ride that has the prairie farmhouse. It looks like a faux house, but something about it just never sat right with me. As I have done hundreds of times before on rides, I jumped off the boat and onto the scene where the house is. I noticed something funny though. There were no pressure mats, and the boat went away, allotting about a good 30 seconds before the next boat got to the scene. I have never seen a ride with no pressure mats to detect if anyone disembarked the ride. So, quick recap. Kids disappear on ride. I show up, feed the cast member who reported it some story about how they disembarked mid-ride, and are on a tour of the lab. And for her not to question it, a colleague of mine takes her away to debrief. I contacted the new cast member operating the ride and told them to put some space between the next boat, as I am looking for a lost wedding ring. Bull, I know. But so what? I slowly started walking up to the faux house. Climbing the steps up to the porch, I noticed a small emblem on the left window. It's a small square and a compass symbol. Interesting that a Masonic symbol is hidden here. I figured whoever built the ride was a Freemason and brushed it off. I looked in the windows of the house and it was nothing but curtains with black plywood behind them. I thought that there was nothing to see here. But still, something inside me decided that wasn't good enough. The front door glided open to a bright room with a black and white checkerboard floor. There was a marble altar-like table on the opposite end of the room, with some kind of weird throne, with a chair built in the front of it, and a gold cup on the tabletop. The only other thing that was noticeable was a heavy wooden door on the other end of the room that was locked. There were no windows or anything else. I thought it was weird because I was always under the impression that this house was fake. Human nature took over again, and against my better judgment, I tried the door in the room, but I was relieved that it was locked. I tried my keys, but none of them worked. Here's the thing. At Disney, we use a lock system called BEST. This had interchangeable cores that have assigned numbers or letters. This is so that we can issue keys only to certain areas. I have the General Master Key, which essentially is the real key to the kingdom. Interesting thing about this lock was that my master didn't open it. I looked closer and it was a BEST lock, but the inscription said CC on it, which I've never seen before. Since the door wasn't open, I decided to just leave. On my way out, I noticed on the floor there was a fast pass printed out for Soren. I picked it up and pocketed it. It's amazing how trash works its way into odd places. I'm going to figure out where these kids went. I rowed the boat back out to the platform and went back to the Epcot security office to play back some footage from the DVR. It took me a while, but I zeroed in on the period where the kids entered the Land and Sea Pavilion and followed them. There were 4 kids total, 3 girls and 1 boy. The girls' actions were almost robotic, and it sent a chill up my spine. They walked in a straight line through the pavilion, but what scared me the most was there was a man escorting them through the place. I paused and looked closer when I realized the man was wearing a black polo and khakis. The same thing I was wearing. Holy hell. I even recognized him. It was one of my colleagues. Alan is the guy that was at the scene before I got there. The same guy who fed the cast member at the control podium the story about the kids going on a tour. I thought maybe he actually did send them on the tour of the botanic lab and lost track of them until I hit play on the film. The boy was not walking in line, and I could tell he was giving Alan problems. He keeps venturing away and gets distracted by various things in the pavilion. The benefit of the doubt I gave Alan subsided when I saw the kid go press the button for the fast pass on Soren and take the paper fast pass, almost like a prize. Alan then tugged him away and stood back and observed as the kids walked to living with the land. I saw them getting on the boat. I saw them through the storm scene, through the rainforest scene, then through the desert scene. After the desert scene, I lost the boat on camera. The ride stopped momentarily. You could see it on the other scenes, and once it resumes, I saw the boat again in the scene, with the pictures of the farmers. The boat was empty. I also saw Alan looking down off the observation deck, which explains how he responded so quickly. I switched the cameras back to the live view and left that area. I haven't exactly been honest with you thus far. I know a lot of things of what Disney does, and things that we respond to that a regular security officer wouldn't deal with. I have seen them experiment with so many things, such as eugenics, pharmaceutical engineering, and even experimenting with gas. Have you ever noticed that on both Spaceship Earth and the monorail, that you get a strange calm feeling on those rides? Well, they are pumping low doses of laughing gas in those areas. Ever heard of Room Zero? They were wearing gas masks for a reason. Ever hear of gas cots? Well, that's not important right now. I would encourage you to research it. I never thought that what we did was okay, by containing these dark secrets, but it paid well. I have seen them quickly inject some experimental drug on guests, and throw them back out there. Our job was to monitor and contain them if things went haywire. I know that I'm the bad guy, but this wasn't normal. This wasn't procedural. The first thing I did was go over to the room where we kept the keys. I looked through the logbooks for the core labeled CC. I found it, but had no zone or specific location issued to the core, and the number of copies was marked as 1. This key was in our system, but my master key didn't open it. I grabbed the core key, and a few Zone 1 cores. The core key is a specific key that when inserted into the lock, will remove the core so it can be replaced with another. I put this in my pocket and made a beeline for the Land and Sea Pavilion. I may be paranoid, but I swear I saw Alan following me in the shadows. I got to the ride and got to the house, and back in the front door to the Masonic room, and locked the front door as I entered. I inserted the core key into the lock on the wooden door, removed the core and inserted Zone 1 core into the lock. Now, my master key will open the door, and boy did it. The door glided open. It was heavy and steel on the other side of the wood face. There was a velvet red carpeted staircase leading down to some kind of utilator. But we are in Epcot. What the hell? There is one small utilator in Epcot, but it doesn't go this deep. I descended the stairs and walked down the red carpeted hallway to these 2 double doors. Behind these doors was my answer, and the truth as to what happened to these kids. Through these doors was the darkest side of Disney, a side of Disney that even I couldn't believe. Would Walt be in favor of this? Or is this one of Eisner's little ideas of making more money off of his guests? Behind these doors was an empty, dimly lit room, with a small circular platform in the center. The carpet was the same lush red velvet carpet from the hallway. There were 6 leather armchairs around the circular platform, all with telephones and card readers on the table next to the chair. Inside, I knew what was going on. I knew what was happening here. This is one of the things I will not cover up for the Disney Corp. I stood there in disbelief and horror, and noticed a small door towards the back of the room. I went over and popped out the CC core, put it in my pocket, and put in a Zone 1 core. I heard someone clear their throat from the front of the room. It was Alan. He had an annoyed look on his face, and held a gun trained at me. I slowly propped the door open on the latch and turned to face him. "You never should have come here," he said as he stepped towards me. "So this is what you and your scumbag friends resorted to? We did some pretty messed up stuff, Alan, but this is a new low for you and your disgusting friends." I had my hand at my side and blocked the view of me slipping the Zone 1 core out of the handle and into my pocket. "It's not going to matter because no one is going to find out." He raised the gun and like something out of an action movie, I ripped the door open as he pulled the trigger as a bullet hit the door. I jumped backwards through the doorway and shut it behind me. He was stuck there because I had put both the cores in my pocket, so there was no way he could open the door. He started shooting at the door, and I moved forward. I walked down a hallway with these small cell-like rooms lining the hall, and inside were those play school chairs and a few toys. I checked every one of them and they were all empty. I got to the end of the hall and there was a huge metal vault-like door. I popped the Zone 1 core into the door to replace the CC core and pulled the steel door open to be hit in the face with sunlight. I was outside on some side utility road, off the premises of Epcot. The road led away. I was too late. They were already gone and for good. I called the police, but they never came. I called the FBI, but they never took me seriously. Hell, I even attempted to call the CIA, but they said they didn't deal with domestic issues like that, and referred me back to the FBI. I showed up to the Orange County Police Department headquarters, and they took a report, but I heard something fall in the trash when I was leaving. Disney is good at what they do. They are good at keeping secrets, and they are good at controlling any outside force that attempts to bring their secrets to light. I'm lucky I saw the sunlight again, and I'm lucky enough to have had time to leave the state before they got to me. If you go there, keep your kids close. Watch out for the guys in the black polos. They may be monitoring you. They may be responding to something that will put you in danger. As far as I know, they aren't the ones who pick out the merchandise. I don't even know who does that. Below, I will link pictures that I found on the internet of the house that I entered. The second story of the house is seemingly normal, but I don't know how they access it. You'll also notice that there is an observation deck. This area was undergoing maintenance at the time. It was closed off to guests, but the CCTV footage revealed nothing was happening in that area. The camera points back onto the observation area and not at the house. There are no cameras in that portion of the ride. So if you ever ride Living with the Land, be careful. There may be people lurking.